Ivanno, thank you so much for talking to me today. Um, so I'm going to dive straight into the questions, if that's okay with you. And I just wanted
Yeah.
you to tell us a bit about the play Retrograde, first of all, because I don't know much about it at all.
Oh, good. I hope you come down and see it.
I will.
We're in 1954/55 at corner office NBC Studios. Height of summer. Very familiar Sydney, young Sydney. Not quite the Sydney, which we can probably speak about a little bit later on. The monolith, the megastar, the everything. That this is very much him, effectively very busy in the trenches. Age 28, he walks in, meets a future collaborator of his, the director and writer of the next show they're about to do. So they're there under the premise of just signing some papers before shooting and camera tests on Monday, assume Thursday, Friday afternoon. But this situation takes a bit of a turn for the worst. It turns out that, I mean, how much do you know? I don't want to give any spoilers.
So only of what I've seen online. So I don't know loads at all. So you go ahead, you tell me.
Well, I mean, yeah, 50. So it's kind of the height of McCarthyism. We've probably seen Jackie Robinson denounce Paul Robeson before. Civil rights, segregation still rife in the South. And there aren't many black stars on screen apart from your caricature kind of step and go fetch it, Man 10 Moreland, you know, Hattie McDaniel in Gone with the Wind, who even had to sit in a separate section at the back of the room and then come and collect her Oscar and go back to it.
It's
Mad
crazy.
world.
Every time I think about it, I think because she was the first black woman to ever win an Oscar, but the way she was treated it's just crazy.
Is it a win? Yeah. And I
this
mean,
is the thing. It's like how you can't even really see it as a win because you didn't even get the opportunity to accept it or anything in the
yeah,
way
I
that
mean,
everyone else did.
yeah. And this isn't too familiar with a lot of awards of late. You know, it's wins, but which way? Is it?
Yeah.
Here's a drink.
Mm.
Kind of, you know, getting names wrong and all that sort of stuff. What Ryan does fantastically is, you know, to the modern listener, they may realize a lot of things ain't all that old. That a lot of these things aren't really done. These patterns are really quite familiar. But anyway, you know, they come up to this office with intention to sign just contracts with NBC because they're about to do A Man is 10 Feet Tall, one of Sidney's first films he did with Robert Allen Arthur, who is actually Bobby in the play. So they're both real people there. So they go into Mr. Parks's office to go sign these things, and they are hit with an oath. They're hit with a denouncement. They're hit with all sorts of things. And this room that was seemingly a step up, a nice little place, a golden handshake that I'm sure many people got, and probably a convertible and cold champagne and all of that in the contract. Another weird, I guess, contaminated offer. But it becomes a challenge and a choice for both Sidney and Bobby. And it's like, the question really is, what are you willing to sacrifice to get there? And where does that stop? And I think as artists and people in the modern day, the more popular culture and towing the line becomes a bit of a thing, where how much does it cost the individual to say no at a time of risk? You know, in comfort it's a different kind of thing, but at that moment, kind of knowing consciously when. And this actually happened twice to Sidney. So this is a combination of a little, you know, we've taken a little bit of dramatic license, but twice on two big films. I think the first one was on Blackboard Jungle. This sort of first big Rock Around the Clock was the opening track, which I think the equivalent to us would probably be Talking the Hardest by Giggs, or Powell, which once upon a time had plaques in the DJ room saying if he played, and that's what that film was. So to a mainstream America, which was fearful of its international reputation and all of that, people like Robeson were more than enemy number one. Quite like maybe Gary Lineker film, but maybe on a slightly lower stakes. But you know what I mean? That sort of cancel culture and kind of So you know so what was meant to be a formal contract signing turns into a much more complicated affair for all involved.
Interesting. So it's interesting because it really is telling his story from a way that we don't know, because I only know him through like the big films and the glam and glitz rather than all the kind of the hard knocks and just the difficulties that he would have faced. What drew you to want to play? Because this is a big kind of character to take on with so many kind of different people's opinions on him and all sorts. What made you want to take on this role?
Parallels are ridiculous for me. You know, I've been in the game 10, 12 years and all sorts of work, you know, shot big things, shot small things, had things given and taken away, 7-year contracts, all that sort of stuff. I think it quite well, Ryan lifts up the lid on, and this is the sort of the separation of the Sidney and Sid. You know, that we meet Sid, but quite often we only ever hear about the results, the polished result of people's hard work, the rejections, the alienation, the discrimination, flatly. The oversight, you know, like Woman King, for example, not even showing up. It's one of the most groundbreaking, innovative, fantastic, interesting films I've seen, let alone that year. And it didn't, you know, these sorts of battles that, regardless of, you know, the industry and all of that, that individuals have to reconcile with. And be up and ready and still kind of keep showing up. So I think that was one thing that drew me to it. I lost someone very close to me over this Christmas period and was kind of gonna take a little bit of time. So it was, I'd gotten this script before Christmas, and something about that person reminds me a lot of Sidney, who was born in Cat Island, the Bahamas. And grew up free range life. He was climbing trees and swimming, and all of this, the Sidney was very much a beautiful, magical journey. And I think a great homage to this person I lost, who was a fantastic unicorn as well, coming from very humble beginnings. And then how you interface with the West then. The firsts, the mistakes, the no blueprint of it. The resilience and the grace. And I think quite like with Sid, and I've read all of his books available, and I think particularly over that time in the build up to this, gotten to watch almost all of his films.
Wow.
The growth is fantastic. But in one of his books, he sort of spoke of like he speaks greatly about like the chance of it. He was born 2 months premature, you know, being from Cat Island, the Bahamas, which already was kind of, they were living off tomato farming, which the US and all sorts of international relations were sort of stubbing that income as well. One of many kids. He sort of speaks about powers that are slightly bigger than, you know, that it was probably bigger than him, and that the chance, the book in question is called A Life Beyond Measure, that he's very much aware that he's a dead man walking. So everything in life is a win. Quite like the person I lost, that is, you know, the private joys of it all, and how you adapt. The double footing, he had a strong accent. Sidney Poitier is an invention. He learned off the radio. and an old Jewish man who tutored him while he was being a porter in New York. Horrible time in New York when he first, he was sleeping rough. He was in the right. Do you mean it's like been shot, threatened with death many times, went to the army, pled insanity, and then actually the psychiatrist caught him out, and he'd lived a full life.
Yeah.
Him and Harry Belafonte, actual generals for MLK somewhere along their life. But it is just, if there is an American dream,
yeah.
whatever that roller coaster ride is, these are people that really lived it to the full. So I was drawn to it to honor that, to honor my person, also to honor my journey, and to bring him into the room.
Yeah.
Even finding these films, for me, having been to RADA, big 34 going on 35 now, very much in this industry, I'd never come across a lot of them. And study for a long time, in all of these circles. And off the record, it's hard not to think that there's maybe an agenda to keep these things seeming brand new, to keep people feeling brand new, or reinventing the wheel, the first. Even Sidney wasn't the first. Paul Robeson was the first. He got cancelled for being a troll. Again, we kind of this retrograde, this.
Yeah.
I think it's a great nugget, and good to show the Sid and not the Sidney.
Very true.
As well,
that's
which
what
I think
we
Ryan's done great. Yeah.
Is there anything you'd want the audience? Because obviously, with all theatre, you're going to get such a mixture of people that will come to watch the show, and a lot of people will go there going to see Sidney rather than Sin. Is there like anything in particular you'd want the audience to kind of take away from watching the play?
Yeah. And hopefully they do get enough of the Sidney, because during the course of the play, we actually see that development that I guess through attrition, unfortunately, we end up getting our most strengthening and edifying moments. But I guess what I want the audience to come with is an open ear to see if the past is truly the past and left there. And if there are any similarities or that they can see in their own lives, I guess artists, contemporary and otherwise, discussions of, the risk of cancel culture and what that is.
Yeah.
Black square skin syndrome and, having passed a lockdown and BLM, that sort of allyship and advocacy, which sometimes when called upon, wears slightly thin. We get to see even some of this in the action of the play. And as we've discussed, that sort of Hollywood star fallacy that maybe we can, in watching this, check our expectations and ambitions about how much it takes to get there and what it is to be there.
Yeah. Which is a big thing, because it's even like now, isn't it, where you kind of, everyone wants to be a superstar, don't they? Whether it's on social media or whatever it is, stardom is like it's fuel that everyone wants. So I think it's important to kind of show that actually, before all the stars, there's a lot of dust. And there's a lot of hard work. To be honest, a lot of hard work goes into it.
Yeah. So
I think, I like the whole kind of concept of where this play is going. Because you've done acting in theatre, also on screen. Is there any medium that you love more? Do you feel like you prefer? It's a hard one, isn't it? Because I know that they can be so different. But do you feel like one you feel more is you than the other?
Ain't nothing going on with the run. No, I'm playing. I think also in my healing and, kind of in that grief, that this is the most thankless of our forms. Financially, everyone in the building, technical team, us, no one's really getting paid. I think a story like this should have the mouthpiece and big platforms, but quite often we need to know what was happening in the 1800s in the Cotswolds again. But theatre is quite like the gym. I've spent quite a bit of time on screen and doing all of that, which, you know, isn't luxury. It's got its own nasty 6 a.m. politics, fast footing, code switching, career risk balancing. But you get picked up and dropped off and fed. You know, this is very much, I mean, we're in Kilburn.
Very true.
You know, and hopefully we can bring, I've invited loads of people from, you know, I went to Brit School and RADA and stuff like that. I'm from South London. You know, it's a bit of a shame to be dragging all those people up to here, but good that they'll come to a place like this. But, you know, very much theatre is punishing, like Jim, it shows you. There's a live feedback and it's 8 shows a week. Again, this stardom thing, this is the dust we speak of, you know, people, you want to be on stage, like rain or shine as well, no matter mood you're in, you know, these are things that, you know.
Just to say you've got like 4 or 5 minutes.
Okay. Yeah. Is that okay? Yeah.
So I'm going to whiz through, I'm going to give you some quick 5 questions in that case, because just to get to know you a bit better. So these are the first thing that comes to your brain before you have to go back to rehearsals. And the first one is your favorite theatre space.
When I played at the Chekhov Theatre in Russia, despite the racism.
Wow. Wasn't expecting to hear that one, but that's really impressive.
Yeah.
I can imagine it would be quite spectacular.
Yeah, it was mad. I've played a lot of places around the world. A lot of places.
And would that be the one that you would say is your most kind of like favorite space?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of a mecca. We've been studying Chekhov and all that kind of stuff and that little legacy kind of thing, and went around the corner to like Lenin graves and all that sort of stuff and old kind of writers and Pushkins and stuff. So I guess, yeah, that was, but I guess more locally. Young Vic Royal Court.
Okay, nice. Nice. And your favorite theatre show? So it could be one that you've watched, it could be one you've been in, one that's like you just would watch again or perform in again.
Yeah, you give me the reps now. It's warm up. Yeah, it's the warm up for the gym. Favorite show. Okay, I'll do an interviewee one. I was since a very young age, I was obsessed with The Lion King, and I went to see that many times in the West End when I was young, insisted upon it. And I think from then, you could, I was very much impressed by the amount of work and the amount of energy put in. And yeah.
It's a fantastic production. Yeah. I agree, so good. Your dream guest, so someone you would love to see the play, and they can be dead or alive.
Him. We tried to invite, did you watch Keeping Up Appearances? Do you remember the bucket woman? Miss Bouquet.
Yeah. Is her name Hyacinth or something?
Hyacinth, yeah. She was into Sir with Love.
Ah, okay.
And she's still alive as an actress with him. So we've tried to invite.
She's still alive.
Yeah. She's still alive. And Lulu sang in it. So one of them to kind of come down. Marianne Cotillard walked past the other day, who famously spent time with him as well, kind of thing. So we've invited her to one of the, hopefully she comes down.
Yeah,
I guess people that knew him or him to be able to look again at the fortitude he had there. Because even in the books, he says he had no blueprint. A lot of it was guesswork. The kind of little hustles and quick thinking we have to do on our toes. So for him to have a chance to look back on the fortitude that he somehow established with the face of annihilation, I'd love him to,
Yeah, 100%. And your proudest, I've got 2 more. So your proudest moment to date.
Proudest moment to date. I was thankful to do Julius Caesar with the Royal Shakespeare Company.
Nice.
It was set in a post-colonial African country, which meant everyone was black in it. And yeah, so we had generations. So people like Adjoa Ando, Cyril Inri, Patterson Joseph, Jeffrey Kassoon was Caesar, and then all of the generations. And I was quite young at the time, and we had 6, 7 young black men and women that we went on tour with. That's where we went to the Chekhov theater. We went around America. So that was edifying. And I think maybe I was a little young to understand how magical that was, but a lot of that is in the bones. And I'm still friends with a lot of them now, fathers and mothers. And yeah,
that's nice.
It was a real connecting one.
And my last quick fire question for you is the person who's had the greatest impact on your career.
Peter Brook.
Okay. And any reason?
On the touring. So when we were in America for the Royal Shakespeare Company, there were auditions knowing that the word was going around that Peter Brook was auditioning for a play called The Suit, set in like the 40s in South Africa in a township, based on a short story by Cantemba. All of that. Went and auditioned. They're a bit off-piste in their practice. They'll just email you directly and say, be in Paris at 6 p.m. at this location. But to win that part, to play a lead there, and then again, that was my first taste of touring, or second taste of international touring, and that took us to Asia, Americas, Europe, and I think Japan, you know, sort of on top of a high rise on the 14th floor of a shopping mall in Tokyo with super titles, still being able to bang it out. So it was, you know, that that affected my life a lot, to sort of see the connectivity, see how far it reaches, and how, you know, you can take a story anywhere and it kind of be received in a certain type of way.
It's so true. That's why I love stories. They're so powerful. Thank you so much. I know you've got to rush back to your rehearsals, but that was so insightful, and the play sounds absolutely so good. I'm going to definitely watch it.
Yeah, come on down. Please do. Please do.
I will definitely.